San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today, the Padres take on the Cincinnati Reds in the second game of a three-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Reds, right-hander Nick Martinez, and for the Padres, right-hander Michael King. Hi, good everyone. Sam Levitt here inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up in Cincinnati at 3:40. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, you'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll check in with Jesse Agler in just a little bit. We're going to have an update for you on Xander Bogaerts, his injury status in just a moment as well, plus much, much more to come. But first, let's set the table. Brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971. With three locations, La Mesa Vista and Oceanside. Padres entered today with a record of 25-26. Padres won 3 of 4 in Atlanta to begin this road trip before losing the series opener in Cincinnati last night. Padres have won 5 of their last 6 series. The one series loss was when they got swept by the Colorado Rockies at home. Meanwhile, the Reds are 20-28. When the Reds arrived in San Diego in late April, they were playing pretty well, but they are just 5-15 in their last 20 games. Although last night's win did snap a 3-game losing skid, the Reds looking to win consecutive games for the first time since April 23rd and 24th. We'll see if the Padres can prevent that here today. Some major news coming down on Xander Bogaerts and the shoulder injury. Let's get right to it.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit him up 24/7 at BadaFulkerson.com.
Some pretty bad news on the Xander Bogaerts front. Padres placing Xander on the 10-day IL with a left shoulder fracture officially earlier today. I want to read this tweet from Kevin Acee. This was when the news first came down. Kevin tweeting of the San Diego Union Tribune, of course, that Xander Bogaerts has a fracture in his left shoulder. No indication of labrum tear or need for surgery. Bone has to heal. He intends to play again this season, perhaps by late summer. He remains in Cincinnati with the team, and more tests are planned today. So the Padres made this move official shortly after the reporting from Kevin Acee, and the full transaction was this. Xander Bogaerts on the 10-day IL with a left shoulder fracture that's retroactive to May 21st. The Padres selecting the contract of outfielder David Peralta, who they just signed to a minor league deal. He's in the lineup today. We'll have much more on that coming up later. But that was the big news today, just in the last hour. Xander Bogaerts on the IL. Sounds like he's going to be out a while. I do want to read a couple of quotes here. This was from Kevin Acee in the San Diego Union Tribune within the last hour. Bogaerts saying, quote, "I'll be back. I'm a quick healer." Bogaerts also saying, quote, "It's been a weird year, but I still have a chance to come back and be a part of something special. It's better than not being able to come back." And Kevin also writing in this article, again, in the San Diego Union Tribune this afternoon, that the Padres believe the fracture in his shoulder socket does not require surgery. So that is the full update on Xander Bogaerts. I'll get into some of the injuries impacting this game for the Reds a little bit later, but figured we'd start with the Xander Bogaerts news. And look, obviously not great news. Xander Bogaerts, somebody who is a pretty big key to the Padres' success, and it certainly sounds like he's going to be out a while, perhaps late into the summertime. You certainly hope that Xander can come back. Kevin also writing in that article earlier today that Bogaerts is scheduled to undergo more tests today to make sure there's no labrum tear and determine with certainty the severity of the fracture. So that was the full update on Xander Bogaerts. He is on the IL, and David Peralta, now a member of the Padres. Let's go to Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. Check in with Jesse Agler.
Let's go inside the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup from Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
We go to Cincinnati, Ohio. We're joined by Jesse Agler as we get ready for today's game on the Padres Radio Network. First pitch coming up at 3:40 for Game 2 of this 3-game series. And obviously, Jesse, the big news, Xander Bogaerts going to the IL. Your reaction to the news that came down within the last hour?
Yeah, first of all, very unfortunate for both Xander and the Padres. Bummed out for him on a personal level. Obviously not good, for the team either. And very, very disappointing. It looked like he was just starting to get going. I think, it's worth mentioning and pointing out, and I'm sure you have, and we all will another million times this summer. It's been a tough year for Xander for a lot of reasons. I think the position switch, the way that all went down was a little bit difficult for him back at spring training, and then starting the year kind of in this slump that, just kept going and going and going. And, as recently as 2 weeks ago, Xander saying he just doesn't feel right at the plate. He knows it's going to come. He's confident that it's going to get better, but it just isn't. And then finally, maybe, in the last week or so, we saw him starting to feel good at the plate for really the first time all year. And then what do you know? This happens, Sunday afternoon in Atlanta, and it's going to be a long road back, it sounds like, for Xander Bogaerts. So very disappointed for him. I feel for him. As I said, it's not good for the team, but if you want to, kind of spin it forward, as we must in sports,
right?
The Padres are, I think, particularly well positioned to absorb an injury on the infield. Obviously, when you look at the composition of the roster, you got a lot of guys who can play a lot of different spots on the infield. So, look, losing a guy of that caliber, never a good thing. Don't get me wrong. But the Padres probably about as well positioned to, as I said, absorb that than maybe any team in baseball.
Yeah, the trade for Luis Ariz now has an even bigger impact to it. Obviously, Donovan Solano also on the roster. He's a part of the infield now as well. So hopefully Xander is back as soon as possible, but it does sound like it's going to be a while until Xander is back. Certainly wish him the best. Let's focus on the second part of the transaction today. David Peralta not just added to the Major League roster, but also in the starting lineup today. Obviously, Jesse Peralta's a guy that Padres fans know well. He spent forever in the National League West. Just your thoughts on David Peralta, the player, the career he's had, because obviously somebody that you've seen a lot over the years.
No, too much, because he used to always hit the Padres, a career 300 hitter in a lot of games with the Diamondbacks against the Pods. He's a guy that I've always honestly really enjoyed watching play baseball. I know he's a little bit older now. We'll see, how it looks for him at this point. I don't think he was fully healthy last year when the numbers came down with the Dodgers. But this is a guy who, put together a lot of really, really good years in the big leagues at Arizona. He's a wonderful story. He was a pitcher in the Cardinal organization, out of baseball, indie ball, worked his way back up as a position player. He's a guy who I think has really kind of been a leader in Major League Baseball in terms of, sort of openly and publicly talking about, the difficulties that guys who, maybe don't speak English and come from different countries can have acclimating to life in professional baseball off the field. He's going to be 37 this summer, and obviously a very different life, when you're coming up through the minors, as a kid from Venezuela, than it is for a kid from Maryland or whatever. So he's a really interesting, deep guy. I had a couple of brief conversations with him when he was with the Diamondbacks. Really looking forward to get to know him better because he's always been someone that was very, very impressive from the other side, and not only because he used to harm the Padres. I'll throw this out there, too, and Tony and I will get into this once the game gets rolling. In a weird way, I could see him playing into the way the Padres cover Xander Bogaerts' absence. Peralta's a corner outfield guy. Jerkson Profar is somebody who can play first base.
Right.
Jake Cronenworth is somebody who can play second base. So, I think it's very easy to sit here today and be like, yeah, Ariz is going to start most of the time at second base, and he may very well do so. But now if you have Peralta, particularly if you have a healthy and productive David Peralta, I do think that opens up some more creative ways to maybe go about, trying to handle Xander's absence.
And you still have Manny Machado playing third base some days, but not every day right now. So a lot of shuffling going on in that infield with the injury to Xander Bogaerts. Before I let you go, Jesse, just to focus a little bit on the pitching matchup today, Michael King on the mound for the Padres. Former Padre Nick Martinez makes his second start against the Padres this season. A tougher outing for King his last time out against the Rockies, but Jesse, when this guy's been good, he's been really good. It just seems like a matter of locking that in, start out. Once Michael King can do that, I think he's going to have a pretty special run at some point here.
No, I agree with you. The stuff is there, certainly, and we've talked about this a bunch of times this year because it kind of has been all or nothing for him in a lot of his starts. But, he is a guy that is still learning how to be a regular starter in the major leagues. And there is, a lot to that, a lot more than I'm sure any of us, can really understand. And I thought that his comments after the one against the Rockies last week were a really good example of one of those things that he's kind of learning on the fly. He was very aggressive in the zone early in his previous start against the Dodgers, and it went great for him. So, human nature, right? What are you going to do in your next start? I'm going to be aggressive in the zone early again. And the Rockies were ready for it. And I think, as he said, by the time he sort of identified and realized what was going on, the damage had been done. And then he did settle in and get better. So, sort of being able to see that stuff a little bit sooner, being able to recognize when something like that is going on, not necessarily that the team is being aggressive or passive, but just sort of all the million things that you're thinking about on the mound. And as I said, I think it's a really good reminder that this guy is a regular starter in the big leagues right now for the first time in his life. And so, these are the bumps and bruises and the learning lessons that sort of go with that. The good news is, as you said, one, he's got all the talent in the world. The stuff is outstanding. And two, he's a really smart, thoughtful guy.
Yeah.
So you get the sense that once the lesson is learned, he can kind of move on from that and make the appropriate adjustments.
Yeah, I think the future very, very bright for Michael King. And you make a great point. It's the first time he's doing this. And we talked about it all the way back in spring training. But the stuff, the talent level, you can certainly see it throughout the first month and a half of this season. Jesse, as always, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Tony coming up at 3:30 in Cincinnati for Game 2 of this 3-game set. Thanks so much.
You got it, Sam.
All right, that is Jesse Agler joining us here on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show as we walk you up towards first pitch coming up for Game 2 of this 3-game series. We got a lot to do between now and first pitch. When we come back, we'll hear from Mike Shildt on the Xander Bogaerts injury and much, much more to come as we get ready for Padres baseball on a Tuesday afternoon. Our pregame coverage continues after this on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. Your water perfected. EcoWater SoCal. Your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40 on this Wednesday afternoon. I know right before the break I said Tuesday afternoon. Hey, it's game 52 here today. Padres in the midst of a stretch of a lot of games and a lot of days. Get your days mixed up. But be assured, it is Wednesday afternoon, not Tuesday afternoon. But speaking of Tuesday and or Wednesday, or going back to Tuesday, whatever, let's go back in time to Tuesday. Let's take a quick look back at what went down in Cincinnati yesterday.
How did the Padres fare in their last game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind. Presented by Hamul Casino. With thrilling slots and tables and all the best rewards, Hamul Casino has all the fun you're looking for. Hamul Casino. Fun above all else.
Yesterday in the series opener, we had a scoreless game heading to the bottom of the second. Joe Musgrove issued a leadoff walk to Jonathan India. Will Benson hit a one-out single with runners on first and second. Musgrove tried to pick off India at second base. The throw got away from Ha-Sung Kim. It was ruled an error on Musgrove. India went to third. Jacob Hurtubise at the plate.
3-2 again. Hurtubise swings, hits it in the air to left field. Profar in and over, going to make the catch. Not so deep. India tagging, going to try and score. Here's the throw in the tag, and he is safe. The ball came out. They had him.
That was ruled an error on Luis Campusano. He applied the tag, but the ball simply came loose. So 2 errors in that inning. There was still a runner in scoring position for Elly De La Cruz.
Here's the 3-1. De La Cruz hits it hard and off the glove of Cronenworth and down the right field line. Fernando gets to it quickly, going to fire to second base. Tag on De La Cruz, not in time. Benson scores from second base, and the Reds lead it 2-0.
Joe Musgrove would go 3 innings in his first start off the IL, 66 pitches, those 2 unearned runs given up. Those 2 runs, though, were really big because the Padres simply could not get anything going against lefty Andrew Abbott. Abbott went 7 scoreless innings, gave up just 4 hits, all singles. Fernando Cruz pitched the scoreless 8th inning. Out of the Reds' bullpen, Alexis Diaz got the save in the 9th inning. Padres had just 1 runner on second base all game. A bright spot was the Padres bullpen. Adrian Morajón, Johnny Brito, Yuki Matsui, and Stephen Kolek combined to throw 5 scoreless innings. Out of the pen, final score, Reds 2, Padres nothing in the series opener yesterday in Cincinnati. And that's a look at what went down in the series opener on Tuesday. We'll see if the Padres can bounce back here in the second game of this 3-game set coming up at 3:40. Again, the big news of the day, in case you're just hopping in your car, maybe tuning in, maybe you've somehow in 2024 avoided social media all day. The big news of the day, Padres putting Xander Bogaerts on the IL with a left shoulder fracture. Sounds like he's going to be out probably for at least a couple of months. The Padres also putting David Peralta. Yes, that David Peralta, long time with the D-backs, was on the Dodgers last year. He is now on the Padres roster. Peralta is not only on the roster, but he's playing the outfield today, batting 6th for the Padres. So those were the 2 big news items of the day. And with those in mind, let's hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Mike, obviously not good news about Xander Bogaerts, it seems like. Can you just talk about what the imaging results were and now him being placed on the IL?
Yeah, I mean, not as good as we clearly would have hoped, especially after the initial imaging. But, you know, when they do a little more imaging relative to the MRI, it reveals more. And, you know, now he's getting the CT scan results back, so it'll create a little bit more clarity on that. You know, I'm not a big timetable guy. I mean, obviously he's on the IL and he'll be on the sidelines for, you know, a period of time, but it's really impossible to say how long. We'll still gathering information, but, you know, the biggest thing is supporting a bogey and figuring out the best way to move forward.
In regards to David Peralta, he's a veteran, but particularly in the NL West. What do you hope that he brings to this clubhouse?
More of what we've seen on the other side. You know, I've got good history with David. Back when he pitched, about 20 years ago, and so then he actually said, I can hit, and well, yeah, I don't know about that, because usually the pitchers don't go into hitters. Usually the guy with a good arm turns into a pitcher, and but he was right. He can hit, and I've seen it for years on the other side, including this division. And great guy, great competitor, great energy, experienced guy, but another professional bat that we're excited to have on the club.
Speaking about the familiarity of facing Martinez again, obviously being someone that he was also familiar with for the past years.
Yeah, I mean, we know Nick, professionally and personally. This group, knows him, likes him a lot, great guy, and but there's familiarity with him. We saw him recently and also played with him, so we have a pretty good idea of what he's going to do and how he's going to look to do it. Now it's a matter of us to be able to have the right approach and execute.
Last night, De La Cruz's double, I asked Tatis how many people even attempt that, much less succeed, and he said only Ellie. But have you seen many guys challenge Fernando like that?
I've seen people try and go back to the dugout.
And Ellie last year.
Including, yeah. So I think the words around, people shut it down more and don't test him. Because the thing is impressive about Fernando is not only the athleticism and ability to get to that ball, but his accuracy on the different body, way he's able to throw from different arm angles and his body control. So not many people try it as much anymore, and but he got tested a little bit last night on what really was legitimately probably a stand-up double for most right fielders. So the fact it was a close play, keep tempting fate.
When you talk about tools, Fernando said he thought Ellie's better than his, and I kind of said, well, just hold off there. But what do you see? Do you see any similarities with Ellie and Fernando when you're talking about tools? Also, I don't know, they both seem to play with this great love of the game.
I think you nailed it. I think there's definitely a comparison there. I'm not a big comparison person. I think everybody needs to have their own identity, and I don't want to put a ceiling on anybody or limit anybody, but it's pretty obvious, right? You're talking about two must-watch guys, right? Like, you're not going, and even myself with Fernando and, admittingly with De La Cruz, you just watch and you go, I just want to appreciate what that athlete's doing on a baseball field, because the skill set really is impressive. And I think there's a lot of similarities to what their skill sets are, and it's clearly great for the excitement of the game.
When it comes to just playing time, just replacing Bogaerts long term, is that going to be sort of a mix and match you have left in the field?
Yeah, we do. We're still in the process of figuring that out. There are some things that we're thinking about that'll, come into play next couple days that we'll explore. But the good news is, to your question, we have options. We have a lot of options between, 3 or 4 different guys. So now it's a matter of putting the best foot forward every day, and I think that's what we'll do. We'll be somewhat creative with that relative to what we're seeing and the pitching, but we'll also create what I think will be some stability that people will like.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt before today's game, talking about the addition of David Peralta, talking about Xander Bogaerts getting put on the IL and how the Padres will fill some of the absence with Xander Bogaerts on the IL now for a while. That was what that last question was about. A little hard to hear, but as Mike Shildt alluded to, Padres have options, and that's a good thing right now when you consider the additions of Luis Arraez and Donovan Solano in particular. Now let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
We take a look at a couple of guys swinging the bat well right now for the Padres. Luis Arraez certainly in that category. He's in the midst of a 26-game on-base streak. Arraez hitting .357 in that span with 15 runs scored, batting .359 in 64 at-bats since joining the Padres. He has multiple hits in 6 consecutive games. Jurickson Profar in the midst of a 10-game hitting streak. He's batting .400 during 35 at-bats in that streak. He has a .500 on-base percentage in that span. In the not category, we take a look at Luis Campusano. Did have the home run in Atlanta, but just 2 for 16 in his last 4 games. He's batting just 148 in his last 27 at-bats. We'll see if Campy can get it going today in the lineup, doing the catching and batting 8th. And that's a quick look at who's hot, who's not for the Padres entering Game 2 of this series. We may have some audio coming from inside the Padres clubhouse, so stay tuned for that. But first, let's take you around the horn.
What's the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball? Sam Levitt takes you around the horn on the Padres Radio Network.
Couple of headlines from around the major leagues to get to today, and we will have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming up a little bit later. Blake Snell returns to the Giants today, makes his first start since April 19th after spending a month on the IL with a left adductor strain. Snell's numbers so far with San Francisco, not good. 11.57 ERA in 3 starts to begin his Giants career. How about the Astros? After getting off to a really rough start, the Astros are now red hot. They've won 10 of their last 13 games. Being led by Kyle Tucker, he is a major league leading 17 home runs. Couple of notes from games last night. Pirates got a walk-off win against the Giants. They tied the game in the 9th inning on a game-tying RBI double from O'Neal Cruz. He hit the ball at 121.5 miles per hour, the 4th hardest base hit of the StatCast era. Pirates won that game in extra innings on a walk-off hit by Nick Gonzalez. Royals, one of the real good stories of the early part of this season. Last night, Bobby Witt Jr. hit a 468-foot, 3-run home run. Royals beat the Tigers 10-3. Witt having a great year. 2 home runs last night. After last night's game, the Royals were 31-19. It matches their best ever start in 50 games. Cubs are sending veteran right-hander Kyle Hendricks to the bullpen. He posted a 10.57 ERA in 7 starts to begin his season. The other side of town, some injury news for the White Sox today. White Sox placed DH Eloy Jimenez on the 10-day IL with a hamstring injury, along with former Padres reliever Steven Wilson. He's on the 15-day IL with a back strain. Again, we'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming up in a little bit, but some headlines from yesterday and today around the major leagues. When we come back on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show, I believe we'll hear from David Peralta, who spoke with the media a little while ago inside the Padres clubhouse. So stay tuned for that. We're working on getting that audio for you, but I think we're going to have it when we come back. We'll also have our keys to the game, look at the out-of-town scoreboard, and much, much more on our pitching matchup here today between Michael King and Nick Martinez. Much more to do on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40, Game 2 of this three-game series. We go out to Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. at 3:30. We'll hear from new Padres outfielder David Peralta in just a moment. Peralta added to the Major League roster earlier today. That was the corresponding move for Xander Bogaerts going on the IL. So we're going to hear from Peralta from inside the Padres clubhouse earlier today in just a moment. First, a quick look at scores today around the majors.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We have a number of finals already around the major leagues. Royals ahead of the Tigers, or I should say beat the Tigers already today, 8-3. What we told you about the Royals getting off to their best start in 50 games in franchise history. Well, they're now 32-19. Nelson Velasquez a home run in that game for Kansas City. Angels already beat the Astros today 2-1 in Houston. Twins beat the Nationals 3-2 in D.C. Max Kepler, a solo home run in that game for the Twins. Games going on right now, none. Everything else coming up a little bit later. We do have a couple of, or at least one other final. Guardians beat the Mets earlier today in Cleveland 6-3. They swept the Mets. Games to come later on. Brewers and the Marlins in Miami. Giants and the Pirates in Pittsburgh. Rangers in Philadelphia. Red Sox against the Rays in Tampa Bay. Yankees host the Mariners. White Sox in Toronto. Braves in Chicago against the Cubs. Rockies and the A's in Oakland. And finally, D-backs and the Dodgers in L.A. And that's a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Wednesday across the major leagues. David Peralta added to the roster earlier today in the starting lineup for the Padres against the Reds. I'll get into Peralta's career, some of his numbers coming up a little bit later on in our pregame coverage. But let's hear what David Peralta had to say inside the Padres clubhouse just a little while ago.
Well, that's what I'm here for. That's what I signed for with this team. I'm really excited to be here. The opportunity, to be honest, I'm not going to lie. When they called me to the office last night, it felt like my first time when I got called to the big league. I knew when I had the surgery last year in the off season, I knew this year it was going to be tough, and it's been really tough for me. Like trying to find come back to the big leagues and everything. But it was been grinding, trying to do my best and prove to everyone that I'm healthy. And I really appreciate it. I'm really thankful that San Diego took that and said, hey, David, we need your help in here, and I'm here to help the team to win.
Is that what your time with the Cubs was too, getting healthy, showing you were healthy, and I guess just how do you feel right now?
Yeah, no, I'm feeling great. I mean, the staff didn't work with the Cubs, but I'm really thankful for them because they helped me to finish my rehab and everything. So I can thank enough to the Cubs to help me with that. Didn't work, stuff happened, but here I am. It worked with the Padres, so I'm healthy, which is great. So it's good, and I'm just can't wait to start the game today and help the team and been facing this guy for a long time, and we have a great talent here. We got a great group of guys, and it feels like I could be with this team for a long time, but it's my first day. But I know they're anxious to win. They want to win because I've been, facing them for a long time. They had a great team, and now I want to be part of that. I want to be part of this culture. I know there's a great culture, the winning culture, and I'm just excited to be here.
Well, no, watching you enjoyed playing this team. Do you recall that? Do you feel like you did pretty well?
Well, I'm glad that I'm this side, and I'm expected to do the same thing.
You bring a lot of veteran experience to this clubhouse, but particularly in the NL West, as you alluded to. What is the value that you hope to bring here to the Padres?
Whatever they need me. I'm just happy to be here. Whatever they need to be off the bench. Yes, whatever they want, I'm going to be ready. Like I said, they have a great talent team. We have a great group of guys, and I just want to do my part to help them to win.
For you, what is the mental readiness? You talked about that word being ready, but I mean, it was last night that I guess you found out that you were being called up. What is the mental preparation for you?
Well, first it's a lot of excitement, I'm really excited to be here, but it's just, I'm not trying to do too much. I've done I've done this for a long time, and I just have to control the emotions and everything, and just be me. I just have to be me and do my thing, and that's what I'm gonna do. I don't want to try to do too much. They know what I can do. I know what I can do, and I just have to do my thing to help the team to win.
That was new Padre outfielder David Peralta inside the Padres clubhouse earlier today. Peralta in the starting lineup for the Padres today, playing left field and batting sixth. I'll get a little bit deeper into what Peralta's done over the course of his major league career in our next segment. First, let's give you our keys to the game.
How will the Padres unlock a victory in today's game? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Honor Buick GMC Hummer in National City.
Key number 1, wake up the bats. Padres haven't scored in their last 19 innings, shut out in back-to-back games. First in Atlanta, then in Cincinnati last night. Padres looking to avoid being shut out in 3 straight games for just the 5th time in franchise history and the first time since April of 2016. Bottom line, Padres got to find a way to score some runs. Can't get shut out in 3 straight games. Key number 2, keep the bullpen rolling. Padres bullpen, despite losing the last 2, it's been really, really good lately. They've allowed just 1 run in the past 5 games, a total of 17 plus innings. Keep that bullpen rolling in Cincinnati. Key number 3, King and the home run. Michael King has allowed 11 home runs this season, most in the major leagues. Since the start of 2021, no venue has surrendered more home runs than Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. So, again, King's allowed a lot of home runs. That's been a big problem when he's struggled. The ballpark in Cincinnati, it lends itself to the long ball. It's a big key for Michael King. He's got to prevent home runs in that ballpark. A tough thing to do. That's key number 3. And key number 4, limit Elly De La Cruz at home. When you look at Elly De La Cruz's overall numbers, they're good. Batting .262 with 9 home runs, 23 RBIs, 30 stolen bases, leads the major leagues. De La Cruz snapped an 0 for 13 skid last night with a couple of hits, but he's been far better at home than on the road. De La Cruz in 23 home games this season, batting .325, a .429 on-base percentage, .610 slugging percentage, 11 extra base hits, 20 runs scored. On the road, it's been a different player. .211 batting average, .292 on-base percentage, 8 extra base hits, 15 runs scored in 25 road games. So he's been really, really good at home, has not been great on the road at all. See if you can slow down Elly De La Cruz at home. And as we know, the running game, a big part of his game. Reds have stolen more bases than anybody in baseball. So the Padres have to be very conscious of that. But limiting Elly at home in Cincinnati, that's key number 4. And that's a look at our keys to the game. When we come back, we dive even deeper into the Padres' debut of David Peralta. We take a deeper look at our pitching matchup between Michael King and Nick Martinez as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40 in Cincinnati. Our pregame coverage continues after this on the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 3:40 between the Padres and the Reds. Game 2 of this 3-game series. Padres trying to play better against teams with losing records this year, just 11-16 against those teams so far. The reason why that's significant, it's really rare for a team to make the postseason when they don't have a good record against losing teams. Here's why. Here's an example. In 2016, the Rangers became the only team since at least 1968 to have qualified for the postseason while having a losing record against teams with losing records. So something to keep an eye on. Padres have to play better against teams like the Reds that are under 500. And by the way, that note about the 2016 Rangers, courtesy of Kevin Acee this morning in the San Diego Union Tribune. We'll see if the Padres can bounce back in Game 2 of this series tonight in Cincinnati. Let's tell you what to watch for in today's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in today's game? We heard from him just a little while ago, the debut in a Padre uniform for David Peralta. 10-year Major League career, a lot of good years in Arizona. Spent last season with the Dodgers, a .259 batting average, hit 7 home runs, 55 RBIs in 133 games, nearly 400 at-bats. You look at his time in Arizona, he was a very, very good hitter. Even last year with the Dodgers, had some productive stretches. So what can Peralta give the Padres, especially now with Xander Bogaerts out for a while? We're going to find out. But that's what to watch for in today's game. Let's see. What does David Peralta do in his Padre debut? We'll see. First pitch coming up at 3:40. Let's dive into our pitching matchup between Nick Martinez and Michael King.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Former Padre Nick Martinez on the mound for Cincinnati. This season, 1-2, a 4.23 ERA in 10 outings, 4 starts, 38-plus innings. He struck out 29, walked 5. Last outing was in relief against the Dodgers. Martinez picked up his first win of the season, 5 scoreless innings of relief. Martinez faces the Padres for the second time this season. He allowed 4 runs in 5 innings here in San Diego back in April. The arsenal for Martinez, the cutter, changeup, four-seam fastball, sinker, curveball, and a slider. His changeup's been really good. A 189 opponent batting average against it, 39% swing and miss on that pitch. Another guy who has a really good changeup, right-hander Michael King on the mound for the Padres. So far, the 28-year-old, 3-4, a 4.31 ERA in 10 outings, 54-plus innings. Gave up 6 runs in 5 innings and a third against the Rockies last week. 2 starts before that, he was awesome. 13 combined scoreless innings against the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. 3 relief outings in his career against the Reds, all scoreless. One of them was a 2-inning relief appearance in Cincinnati while he was a member of the Yankees. So this will be the second time he pitches at the very hitter-friendly Great American Ballpark. The arsenal for Michael King, the four-seam fastball, the sinker, the changeup, the sweeper, and the slider. And much like Martinez, the changeup's been really, really good this year. A 141 opponent batting average, 42% swing and miss on that changeup. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup here today. Michael King for San Diego, Nick Martinez for Cincinnati. You've been listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Let's set the table one more time for you. Padres enter today with a record of 25-26. Padres 1-3-4 in Atlanta to begin this road trip. They then lost the series opener last night in Cincinnati. Padres trying to win a 6th out of 7 series. They've won 5 of their last 6. Meanwhile, the Reds are 20-28. Reds have been struggling for the most part as of late, just 5-15 in their last 20 games, including last night's win. Last night's win did snap a 3-game losing skid. The Reds, how about this, looking to win consecutive games for the first time since April 23rd and 24th. We'll see if the Padres can prevent that here today in Cincinnati. When we come back, Jesse and Tony have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and then all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game show. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan, and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.